The morning began with the kind of silence that feels like a warning from life itself, heavy, cold, and unsettling. Rain clouds hung low over the gray city skyline, and Daniel stood by the cracked mirror in his tiny apartment, straightening the only tie he owned. His heart was pounding. This interview, at one of the biggest companies in town, was supposed to change everything for him and his 6-year-old daughter, Emily. He had rehearsed every line, practiced every answer, and prayed harder than he ever had before. Today was the thin line between a life of constant struggle and the chance to finally give his daughter the future she deserved. But fate, as always, had its own plans, plans that would crush him, test him, and ultimately lead him to a truth he never saw coming. If you believe the world still rewards kindness and second chances, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support means everything. Daniel rushed through the wet streets, balancing his umbrella while protecting the manila folder containing his resume, recommendation letters, and printed portfolio. He couldn't afford a cab, so he had left home extra early, determined not to be even a minute late. The wind pushed against him, but he pushed harder, imagining Emily's face the moment he would tell her he got the job. She had placed a little sticker of a golden star inside his folder for good luck. "So you shine, Daddy," she had said. That memory kept him warm despite the cold. But halfway down the slick road, just minutes from the corporate building, a sudden, sharp cry sliced through the rain. Daniel turned sharply to see an elderly woman collapsing onto the pavement, groceries rolling in every direction, her umbrella broken beside her. She was trembling, confused, and clearly in pain. Cars passed, people walked around her, and the world moved on as if she didn't exist. Daniel froze for half a second. Then he felt his heart sink as he glanced at his watch. He had 12 minutes left before his interview. 12 minutes that could determine his entire future. But the sight of the old woman struggling to breathe, her hand weakly reaching for a spilled fruit, shattered every calculation in his mind. He couldn't leave her like that. Not even if it cost him everything. He ran to her, dropping his umbrella onto the wet street. The woman whispered that her hip hurt, that she couldn't get up. Daniel gently placed his jacket under her head, checked her breathing, and stayed with her until the ambulance arrived. He helped gather her groceries, shielded her from the rain, spoke to her softly so she wouldn't panic, and held her trembling hand the entire time. The paramedic who stepped out told him he could leave once they took over. But the old woman looked up at him with terrified eyes, silently begging him not to. Something about her reminded him of his late mother, a kind of fragile strength hidden beneath years of quiet suffering. Daniel couldn't walk away. He stayed inside the ambulance, holding her cold hand as they drove through the rain. By the time she was safe and stable in the hospital, Daniel's phone buzzed with a notification. The interview time had passed. He had missed it. No second chance. No rescheduling. His heart felt like it had been punched through his chest. After escorting the woman to her room and making sure she was safe, he walked out of the hospital feeling like the world had collapsed around him. He walked home in silence, the rain washing over him, his shoes soaked, his tie hanging loosely around his neck. Every step felt heavier than the last. He thought of Emily waiting for him, expecting good news, expecting hope. He had no idea how he would face her. But life has a strange way of rewarding the very moments that look like failures. The following morning, after dropping Emily at school, Daniel returned to the hospital to check on the old woman. She lit up when she saw him, calling him the angel from the storm. Her name was Margaret. She insisted he sit beside her, insisted he take a small breakfast fruit from her tray, insisted he talk to her. Daniel stayed for almost an hour, not realizing that someone else had noticed him. Just as he stood to leave, the door opened and a sharply dressed man, confident, tall, clearly wealthy, walked in. Daniel felt immediately out of place, assuming he was a doctor or an important relative. The man froze when he saw Daniel, and then something changed in his face, confusion, recognition, then something like disbelief. Margaret smiled warmly and introduced Daniel as the young man who saved her life when she fell in the street. The men stepped closer, eyes widening. Margaret introduced him as well. He was the CEO. The same CEO who had been scheduled to interview Daniel yesterday. Daniel's heart dropped. Shame washed over him. He apologized before the CEO could say a word, telling him he missed the interview because of an emergency. But Margaret interrupted with a soft laugh and said, "He missed the interview because of me." The CEO's expression shifted completely. He slowly approached Daniel, and for the first time, Daniel realized the impossible truth: Margaret wasn't just any old woman. She was his mother. The CEO's mother. The most important person in his entire life. The CEO turned to his mother, who nodded, eyes shining with emotion. Then he faced Daniel. The words he spoke next felt like a blessing Daniel had never dared to hope for. He told Daniel that any man who would sacrifice his biggest opportunity to help a stranger had already proven the kind of character the company desperately needed. He said Daniel didn't need an interview. His actions were the interview. Then he offered him the job. Daniel felt tears burning behind his eyes as the CEO extended his hand. In that moment, all the fear, all the pressure, all the sleepless nights, all the sacrifices of being a single father, came crashing down into one overwhelming wave of relief and gratitude. The world hadn't punished his kindness. It had honored it. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to support more real, emotional stories like this.